So, how do we get there with our model? Well, both the higher stages that the authentic self is trying to climb into and the higher states that we're trying to awaken to have physiological correlates. This is what Allison was talking to us about yesterday. So, if your brain won't assimilate nutrition when it's in lower brain stress physiology, how well do you think it's going to assimilate God? This is a missing link. You can't tune the receiver. If you're going to know God in this lifetime on this planet, it's going to have a corollary in this physiology. This is the receiver. And if you can't tune the receiver to the right frequency, then you're going to have to sit in a cave with your legs crossed, counting your breath for 8 hours a day for 40 years. Until hopefully the physiology breaks open. But what if we can break the physiology open first, because we know now how these things connect? The Buddha didn't know it. Christ didn't know it. Krishna didn't know it. So, in the same way that if we can get energy flows to the higher brain, wake up the capacity of the higher brain where it starts creating its own feedback, further waking up the higher centers of the brain, it's in a thrive state. In the same way that we can introduce nutrition that now gets better assimilated, in this same way we can introduce contemplation or meditation and tune that awakening higher brain in the ways that it can actually start to enact those higher states. Because it's primed, prepped to receive them. It's not fighting against itself as it is in traditional meditation or contemplative techniques. And this is the level of understanding that you need to have when someone says, I already meditate.
Wow.
And so salutogenesis then, I see as a repurposing of the original energy of evolution as the Shiva shot forth the Shakti as the ground of being, of just consciousness beingness, without any space-time, matter, or manifestation, just pure consciousness and beingness, but within it the entire creative matrix for a world to emerge. And from that, energy. And matter. And the energy propelling the matter forward, the eros of evolution, winding itself up in time, until at this time we are now able to access that energy that is either evolved in a new way or accessible in a new way, And maybe different traditions and maybe different places have had very similar things arise in some people, but I can promise you, and you can show it to me if it's different than this, there is no technology that's ever existed to humankind that I'm aware of that consistently and repeatedly created fluid, organized patterns in the way that happens within the first or second session, and by the fourth session of higher brain living, a fully formed salutogenic response should exist. And as we wake that brain up, put our attention on that salutogenesis, which amplifies the waking brain, and the waking brain has the ability to create more focus into the salutogenesis, and more focus into the salutogenesis amplifies the salutogenesis, and amplified salutogenesis wakes up higher capacities of the brain that allow us to put more focus into the salutogenesis, and it creates a feedback loop that's actually increasing energy. Forget about friction. Forget about losing energy or dissipating energy. Forget about the fantasy of perpetual motion. We're going beyond that. Not only maintaining the energy, but actually growing it, expanding it. And each expansion wakes up higher capacity of the brain. And higher capacities of the brain correlate with higher capacities of the mind, i.e. these waking up states, higher states of consciousness, because the upper left and the upper right are correlated. Everybody knows what I mean when I say that, right? The upper left mind consciousness, the upper right body brain are corollary. So if we flood the higher brain with more energy, we wake up the higher brain capacities, we have access to the higher mind, higher consciousness capacities. Now the brain is awake. Now we simply tune the brain through contemplative or meditative techniques to get the mind to awaken once the brain is awakened. This completely changes the rules of the game, and nobody is saying anything like this. No. And if you haven't owned and embodied this understanding, you're leaving a huge vacuum in the market space for something truly disruptive and unique to emerge, which is what we're trying to do.